Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm going to start off by telling you a story. Now, I want you guys to imagine yourselves in that story. So, the story begins of a couple of friends, maybe even three to be exact, and they were just having fun. Imagine yourselves as that child who was having fun with his couple of friends. Now, you can imagine him talking about cricket, you can imagine them talking about their crush, and you can imagine the other two making fun of him because he was talking about their crush. So all of these guys in their mid-20s, in their early 20s were, trying to just have fun. When suddenly enters an elder man, a wise man. This is my interpretation of an elder man. Something like Gandalf, something like Hagrid. Now, the problem with elder and wise man is that whenever they come into the room, the conversation inevitably turns really boring. He spoils the fun. Why? Because the conversation inevitably turns to things like life, death, purpose, existence. You know, the boring stuff. The stuff we don't want to talk about, but we know we have to talk about. So these three guys, because he was an elder, indulged him in the conversation. And eventually, the conversation went to the dreaded path. Now, as this elder man was about to leave, he wanted to have some fun of his own. So he thought, why not I throw a last Yorker, a curveball? And he asked them a simple question. A question which I want all of you guys to ask yourselves as well. What do you want to do when you grow up? Now, considering that these three kids were roughly in their early 20s, it seems to be a real illogical question. It seems to be a real illogical question for most of you here because we're practically grown up. And considering if you are in your early 20s, that's a really confusing age. Your father might want you to get a job because you're about to graduate. Your mother might want you to get married. My mother did. She's laughing right now. So you want to get on the bandwagon with your friends to go to a university. And you also want to change the world. But the thing is, you're also very lazy. And because of that, you become confused. And in that confusion, although this is a really simple question, you hesitate with your response. Now, imagine these three kids giving their responses. It might be something like the first one says, I am a good cook, so why don't I be a chef? The other one says that I know I can sell stuff, I dress nice, I can do marketing or advertising. You can imagine the third one to be some of a nerd, the mathematics, economics, physics types. So he goes on and says that, let's say, I want to make the economic policies of Pakistan. After hearing the responses, the elder man laughed because he knew he had him in his place, all of those in the place he wanted to do. And as he was exiting the room, he gave an alternate proposition. He says, why not just grow up to be human? Why not just be human? It threw me off. This story throws me off every time I sing Look in Your Faces, it throws you off as well. And the problem with elder men is when they make an intellectual slap across your face, they tend to leave the room. So you revel in the existential crisis yourselves. After hearing the story, practically I got into an existential crisis myself. So I thought about this question a lot. I thought about the first time I was asked the question what I wanted to be when I grew up. I guess we would all agree that we must have been asked the question when we were in kindergarten, in nursery, in prep. And do you know what our responses were back then? We instantly gave those responses. I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a policeman. But we almost always added an additional qualifier to the statement. We said we want to be a doctor. Why? Because we want to help others. We want to be a policeman. Why? Because we want to protect others. We want to be a teacher. Why? Because we want to teach others. In reality, whatever our dreams and aspirations were relative to the benefit of others. In reality, what we wanted to be when we grow up was compassionate. In reality, what we wanted to be when we grow up was human. Becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer, becoming a teacher was just a mere process of it. Now, as we grow up, we have been stripped away of our childlike innocence. I'm not here to debate about why. Let's just say it's the complexities and harshness of life. But I'm here to tell you about the result. The result is collectively as a society, we keep ourselves first and everybody else second. And what happens that is we become stricken with the disease. The society becomes stricken with the disease, and that disease, I say, is lack of compassion. And my friends, That lack of compassion is true poverty. Now you may ask, Musa, why poverty? Why is lack of compassion poverty? Well, it's poverty because we see poverty in a very unilateral sense. We see poverty as a lack of food, lack of shelter, lack of clothing, but it's also a lack of heart, a lack of soul, a lack of purpose. These are the two intellectual sides of poverty. But if we boil them down, isn't it just lack of compassion? Because when you aren't compassionate enough, you don't think of the next person. You take more than you share. And as a result, you create a hunger of needs for many, but a hunger of unending wants for yourself. That is why lack of compassion is true poverty. And that is my aim, to fight this lack of compassion. My story starts 3 years back as a sophomore at LUMS. Me and my two good friends, Uzaifa and Qasim, we weren't such a good friends back then. I barely made it to the motorcycle, as you can see. So Uzaifa came to me and said that he wanted to do something. Actually, Uzaifa's mom had been arranging a dastarhan in her home for the last 25 years. So he could see a lot of hungry people coming to the dastarhan and not having enough food. But on the other flip side, we as part of the privileged class used to go to a lot of restaurants, a lot of parties, a lot of catering events, and we used to waste a lot of food. Now that's a great conflict. Now when he told me the idea that we should do something about it, I was immediately on board. But the fact was we didn't know what to do because it hadn't been done before. So we got really confused. We researched into it. We researched into the logistics, the mechanics of how we're going to procure food from one end and deliver it to the other end. And the process, I realized it had become more mechanical. Again, stripped of compassion, stripped of the humanity of it. So in the frustration, we got onto Facebook and we did this. We went on to MS Paint and wrote Rizq in the spur of the moment and put it on Facebook page. We put our numbers on the Facebook page and said that if anyone has any excess food left over, just give us a call. Overnight, we went viral. We had 2,000 to 3,000 likes, and the next day, we had our phones buzzing. So what we did, whenever a call came, we bunked our classes, and we went from one corner of the Lahore to another. And what started as a result was an incredible journey. We went to slums, we went to meet different people, we went to meet different kids, and all of these kids and individuals pour in compassion to the process. All of these children, people like these, I realized that it's all about compassion. Children like these, volunteers like these, our team began to grow. And what started originally as an effort, which was volunteer-based, we made it more sustainable. We introduced the Rizq Shah, Pakistan's first food-saving vehicle. And afterwards, we went even more bigger. Even today, I say that Rizq is the result of the compassions of all of you people involved. I claim and I agree to this fact that I haven't put in as much effort in this venture as you guys have. And today, after 3 years, a venture that eventually started as 3 kids going on their own cars collecting food is Pakistan's first social enterprise, first social business, not just a charity, a social business catered towards the poor. And we have saved of around 30,000 kgs of food, feeding 160,000 people from food that otherwise have been gone to waste. And we have also channelized a lot of philanthropy as a result. But it is you guys who kept me going on. We graduated, man. When you graduate, there's a lot of problems, especially when your father, your mother, and your peers are going to pressurize you to do different to explore yourselves. And that was the case with me. But what made us go on? The first thing is your compassion, but the second thing is the gravitude of the problem. The condition in Pakistan is that the gravitude, the situation of food security is really gray. 1 in 2 Pakistanis is food insecure. Around 40 million children are malnourished. But on the flip side, 40% of the food from farm to fork goes to waste. Around $1 billion goes into annual food-based charity. That means there are a lot of resources to go around. So the question is, if there are a lot of resources to go around, why is there hunger? Isn't it just lack of compassion? Isn't it you just taking more than you need? I bet my life on it, yaar. If you go to your homes and open your fridges, you must find something that has expired. If you open your cabinets, the situation will be the same. And what about the grain of rice? What about the grains of rice you seemingly waste on the plate? Oh, you don't realize that it's not just a simple grain of rice. It's all of the resources that go into making that grain of rice. You show apathy and indifference to the laborer, to the farmer who toiled the soil. You show apathy and indifference to God or nature, whoever you believe, who blessed you with rain. You show apathy and indifference to the laborer, to the transporter who procured the grain of rice from the farm and went to the market, to your father who spent his hard-earned living to get that for you. And most importantly, you show apathy and indifference to your mother, who made this food with utmost compassion and love. When you waste the grain of rice, don't you just rob them of the compassion due to them? Don't you make them poor? Isn't lack of compassion poverty? I guess it is. I think it is. But what's the result? What should we do? How can we cure this? Well, the problem with hunger of wants is that it can only be satiated to an extent. To completely eliminate it, you just have to let it go. Let it go how? Let it go by embarking on a journey of return to be that child, where you put your self-involved passions behind and put compassion for others first. You know, in the quest for our individuality, our uniqueness, we are geared to strive for our passions, strive for our ambitions. But the thing is, we might find our ambitions, and the result is that many people are lucky enough to find their ambitions, but we see a lot of people without purpose as well. We need scientists to think better, we need engineers to build better, we need teachers to teach better. But none of that ambition, none of that expertise is of any use until it is grounded in compassion. Remember the story of the 3 kids? They did just that. They realized their ambitions and made them compassionate. They realized their compassionate ambition. That is the first step. All of you need to realize your compassionate ambition. I'm not a wise man. I'm just 23 years old. If the only thing I can give away to you is, guys, the purpose of life is just this. Find what you're good at and do it for others. The first child, remember, he wanted to be a chef? That is Josefa. He's not your average bawarchi at Rizq. He's, because of his love of food, he procures food and distributes it to people. The other guy, looking sharp as always, is Qasim. He needs to strike a deal at any time. So he does marketing. He wanted to be a marketer and he's doing that for Rizq. The nerd, that was me. I was good at economics, good at maths. So now I develop the development strategies as well as finances of Rizq. So all of us realize our compassionate ambitions. But one more thing. The story doesn't end here. There is a second step to the process as well. A few weeks back, a lady came to my office. So, a lady came to my Rizq office. So, there's a tradition at the Rizq office that if you come to the Rizq office, we have to offer you Rizq, and you have to eat that Rizq as well. She wanted to share some food. Visibly flustered. She was She was really, tensed. Maybe this was some sort of a release. But she refused the food I offered her. When she was going away, I just complained to her a little bit, just joked that you came to my office and you didn't have food. That's like the number of one SOP. And she says, she was visibly offended at my statement. And she says, Beta, don't ever say that to me again. Because I got something here more than what you offer. I got Rizq for my ruh. I got Rizq for my soul. And then I realized, after realizing my own compassionate ambitions, I have to make other people realize theirs as well. That's the second step. Help others realize their compassionate ambitions. And I'm thankful to these 2 idiots who gave me the chance to get on the bike with them and help me realize my compassionate ambition. So that's just the solution to the 2-part problem of lack of compassion. Now, this. Lack of compassion, you can cure it by realizing your own and helping other people realize theirs. And this order is really important, guys. 3 years back, the real trigger point for me for doing Rizq was me and Qasim were going to a restaurant. We had some leftovers, and after restaurants, we naturally have to eat dessert. So we went to a local ice cream shop, and the waiter came to our car door, and I just gave the leftovers to him and said, okay, please find someone hungry and give this food to him. The waiter obliged. 5 minutes later, when I peeked out of my window, I saw the same waiter hiding the pack of biryani under his shirt and going to the adjacent building and eating it, nibbling down pack of biryani. It was my leftovers, man. Seeing him, 3 other waiters came to him and started snatching the pack of biryani. Now, just try to imagine the injustice, fathom the irony that the same person who is bringing you food is hungry. Now, as Rizq, as a potential economist, I can design all the systems, and I promise I will design those systems. But no economist, no strategist, no scientist can design for this inherent lack of compassion. You have to do it on your own. This is a journey you have to make on your own. So as I bid you guys farewell, I just need to take a promise from you. The promise is that you just pick your fight against lack of compassion, realize your compassionate ambition, and commit to that fight. My fight is in the form of hunger. Your fight may be in the form of illiteracy, maybe in the form of curing some disease. But pick up that fight and commit to it. There will be times when there are downs, but there will also be ups. There will be times when you want to give up. There will be times when the closest people to you ridicule you and the closest people to you leave you. But it's all worth it. It's all satisfying because I can say I've done that. So, as I bid you guys farewell, I just need to take that promise for you. Commit to the fight of lack of compassion, against lack of compassion. And I know we can't reach every hungry person or every poor person every single day. We need to be realistic enough in that regard, but we also need to be optimist enough to get up every day and try to achieve that end. To realize our own compassionate ambitions and help others do the same. For if lack of compassion is true poverty, its abundance is risk. Its abundance is what you call human. Thank you.